I'm Jim Richards. We're talking about dogs, lovable dogs.
Rough.
This segment on the iHeart Radio Network.
It's News Talk tonight on the iHeart Talk Network. Here's your host, Jim Richards.
I am Jim Richards. Thank you very much.
Wow.
Down, get down. Not like funky, but just
rough.
Don't jump up on me. I don't know. Like, I know people who, my dad never was one for training the dogs. He loved jump up dog. He loved coming home, dog jumping up on you. That was his thing. And so we always had jump up dog. And like when somebody has their dog jump up on me, I'm always like, oh, don't worry about it. But they're always very embarrassed that their dog isn't trained or whatever. But I always have been a huge fan of jump up dog. But I'm also, people are like, how could you be a fan of jump up dog, but at the same time be angry at off leash guy? Because off the leash guy in a non-off leash area, I have a lot of compassion for people who might not know anything about dogs or afraid of dogs, had a bad experience with a dog, came from a country where there's not a lot of dogs, and they're freaking out. So I don't want to hear the guy go, whoa, if my dog is really trained. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. Put your dog on a leash. And that is what I have to think about dogs. But there's more.
Wow.
Oh, what a lovely dog. There's this case that we talked about last week. Now, all sorts of some allegations made here in the media and the news and the reporting. It's not like I am gossiping out of turn. They allege that this young woman who loves this dog met Rocco, 60-year-old guy, died. That they met 6 years ago on a website that is a sugar daddy website. It is alleged that the relationship was transactional. And there is no proof of what the young woman says that, oh, he bought that dog from me. And so apparently she claims that they were common law. But I would ask this question. In the reporting here, she's like, well, when he died, I went and got the dog and took him home with me. If you're common law, wouldn't you live with the now deceased?
He's my family. He's my friend. He's my child. And I know that some people say he's just a dog, but to me, he's my entire world. And that's why I've been fighting so much for him and so hard for him. He's been my biggest support since everything happened. He gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. I owe him so much.
So the judge said a couple of things in concluding. The judge said that there's no proof that this dog was a present. There's no proof that they were common law. But there's also no proof that the relationship was transactional. But the judge ruled today that the sisters, who got everything from the now deceased Rocco Sr., would get the dog. This is the lawyer for the sisters.
As I indicated, the last living thing connected to their late brother. So they loved the dog and wanted him back.
And it's not like they thought that the dog wouldn't be loved if it stayed with the girlfriend. I was going to say alleged girlfriend.
There was no suggestion that the dog would be less loved or less cared for by any of the parties.
But boy, oh boy, man, in this case, they spent $200,000 on this dog. Not on the dog, but fighting over the dog. $200,000. How much money was that in that estate? We do not know. But we do know that Laura Paris joins us right now, and Laura is a family law lawyer. And I guess as we looked around, Laura, thank you very much for joining us. This is a state law, so we called the wrong person, but I know that you are up to speed on all of the laws. And thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
For sure. Well, it is a state, but in terms of how it seems that, the case was decided, there would be some intersection intersection with family law. I think you and I have discussed before the way that dogs are treated in the context of a divorce, and ownership and determining ownership is something that a family court would consider as well. So it seems that similar to the assessment that the estate court took in ultimately determining that the dog was rightfully owned by the deceased and wasn't a gift to the girlfriend, or she didn't have any entitlement to it, would be a similar assessment that we would take in a family law context.
Just because the law is the law, unfortunately, I know BC allows for evidence, but it allows for, hey, this is the person who takes care of the dog, this is the person who feeds the dog, this is the person who walks the dog, so the dog should go to this person despite what, they might be fighting over in a divorce. Is a judge, when the law is the law, allowed to say, listen, this is stupid. The law should go to this, in this case, this young woman who is the only person who's really familiar with this dog?
So, I mean, I think from a practical perspective and just like a logical perspective and dog right perspective, you would think that the right place to put this dog is with the owner, that is, or the individual who is most familiar with the dog. However, when asking a judge to apply the law in this circumstance, common sense doesn't always prevail. And sometimes the law, as much as we like to believe that it's rooted in common sense, sometimes it isn't, and it's a little bit more black and white than we'd like to accept. And in this case, what it appears is that really it was based on solely determining who the true owner was, and as a result of the owner being the deceased, his property fell to his sisters, who were the beneficiaries of his estate. So nobody really took the dog's well-being into consideration in making this determination.
Where are we in other provinces? We talked about British Columbia taking into consideration who the dog spends the most time with, who walks the dog, what kind of relationships, is it going to break the heart of the kids, that sort of stuff. Is any other province, is Ontario looking at making those changes? And how often do you have to deal with something like this in family law?
So, to the best of my knowledge, there hasn't been any other province that's actually taken active steps to, or is anywhere close to actually amending the law on this issue. What I would suspect is that it's probably that the courts are waiting to see how the application works in BC and whether it complicates things or if it runs smoothly before they try to implement it within their own province. With that said, the law has, to an extent, expanded past just the ownership piece, where so you will see some judges taking a bit more of an assessment, but you need to consider too, in the context of family law, a big piece of what a judge looks at as well is how does this affect the kids, because the best interest of the kids is such a huge consideration in the family law context. So from a family law perspective, which differs to an extent from how an estate would be treated, the kids really are an important point, which that is something that kind of falls off of that just strictly ownership piece. So, I mean, it's hard to say where it's going to go. Again, I think, you got to be careful about the floodgates with this too, when we're having full out custody battles over animals, when, there's urgent issues happening involving children, right? Yep. So you need to be careful how you're utilizing court resources, but I do think that the shift's going to probably start. There's going to be a ripple effect in terms of what was changed in BC and seeing it implemented in other provinces in the near future.
Just one quick question, because I'm out of time. Do you know if in estate law, if somebody's fighting this, if they rack up $200,000+ in lawyer fees, if the person who loses, in this case the young woman who is trying to get the dog, if she has to pay the $200,000?
It wouldn't be necessarily that she would pay that full $200,000, but presumptively, as the losing party, there would be a cost consideration.
Yikes. Sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Laura. Really appreciate your time.
For sure.
Laura Paris is a family lawyer. I'm Jim Richards. Jim Etiquette. Full disclosure, my name is Jim. That's next on the iHeart Talk Radio Network.